These are the final hours of the election campaign in Hungary. Voters will go to the polls on Sunday to elect their new parliament. The election pits the outgoing Prime Minister Viktor Orbán against Péter Magyar, the opposition's leading figure. Viktor Orbán has been leading the country for 16 years. The wear and tear of power, the deteriorating economic situation, and a series of government scandals coming to light make this election the Prime Minister's greatest electoral challenge. TISA party, founded 2 years ago by Péter Magyar, currently leads in opinion polls ahead of Orbán's Fidesz party. Viktor Orbán has been ruling Hungary with absolute power, including the authority to amend the constitution, for 16 years. The politician began as a student activist against Hungary's soft communist dictatorship in 1989. He drew attention by demanding the withdrawal of Russian troops at a high-profile mass rally. In the 1990s, he transformed Fidesz, the party that had emerged from the student movement, from a liberal to a conservative party and ousted his rivals within the party. In 1998, at the age of 35, he became Prime Minister for the first time. His 4-year tenure advanced the goals set at the time of the regime change, economic convergence and NATO and EU membership, but he lost in the 2002 election to the Social Liberal coalition as he did in 2006. During the socialist second term, which was plagued by one scandal after another, the economic crisis struck, sweeping away Fidesz former rivals. And Orbán came to power in 2010 with a massive mandate and a constitutional majority. He completely reshaped Hungary's political system to suit his own goals. Orbán's dominance in domestic politics was unquestioned for a long time. His focus shifted to foreign policy, and he gradually became the ideological leader of the populist opposition within the European Union and then of populists worldwide, championing issues of lesser importance to Hungary, such as immigration and gender issues. Ultimately, he also clashed with the EU mainstream over support for Ukraine, while building close ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump. The deteriorating economic situation, the abuses of power during 16 years of absolute rule, corruption and the deviation from the 1989 foreign policy course aimed at Western integration have by 2026 produced a challenger with a real chance of victory, the TISA party, thus making Orbán's hold on power precarious. Péter Magyar has risen from near total obscurity to become one of Hungary's leading political figures in just 2 years, building the TISA party from the ground up. But his story is not that of a fairy tale underdog. Born into a conservative legal dynasty, his godfather was former President Ferenc Magyar. From the outset, he maintained strong ideological and personal ties to the political right. Through his then wife, former Justice Minister Judit Varga, he gained access to the highest circles of Fidesz and held positions in the leadership of several state-owned companies. Although they had already divorced, in early 2024, Magyar publicly turned against the Orbán government, outraged that his ex-wife had also been forced to resign over a pedophile presidential pardon scandal. In a Facebook post that drew millions of views, he voiced his anger, making a turning point. The post led to an invitation to the online show Partisan, where he spoke openly about alleged abuses within Fidesz. Days later, he released an audio recording in which his former wife discussed alleged links between the government and the head of the bailiff's chamber, who had been accused of large-scale corruption. Magyar's popularity surged almost overnight, and ahead of the European Parliament and local elections, he revived a dormant minor party, TISA. The party's strong performance in the European elections signaled growing public disillusionment with what he has described as the old opposition. Hungary's ruling Fidesz has launched several smear campaigns against him, but allegations ranging from domestic abuse to espionage and drug use have failed to gain traction. His message is straightforward: a functioning state, a Western orientation, and a Christian conservative agenda, without what he describes as the corruption of Fidesz.
Ukraine says repairs to the Druzhba pipeline will be completed this spring, but the politics surrounding it are far from fixed. President Zelensky confirmed this week that work is underway on the pipeline, which Kiev says was struck by a Russian drone in late January. The pipeline carries Russian oil to Hungary and Slovakia through Ukrainian territory, and this disruption has caused a major rift between Kiev and Budapest. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has accused Kiev of deliberately keeping the pipeline shut for political reasons, blocking a €90 billion EU loan to Kiev in retaliation. But Zelensky has pushed back, saying he is effectively being forced to restore the flow of Russian oil and comparing it to lifting European sanctions on Moscow. The European Commission says Brussels and Kiev are broadly aligned on timing, but has stopped short of saying any more.
Ukrainian military personnel shot down Iranian-designed Shahid drones in multiple Middle Eastern countries during the Iran war, President Volodymyr Zelensky has said. Zelensky made his first public acknowledgement of the operations on Wednesday in remarks to reporters that were embargoed until Friday. The Ukrainian leader described the operations as part of a broader effort to help partners counter the same weapons used by Russia in Ukraine, but did not identify the countries. Zelensky had previously said that 228 Ukrainian experts were deployed in the Middle East. The disclosure comes amid concerns that the conflict in the Middle East could divert Western military support from Ukraine, particularly air defense supplies. But Zelensky said that partners were continuing to supply missiles for Patriot systems, adding that a new batch had arrived in recent days.
J.D. Vance has flown to Pakistan to lead high-stakes talks with Iran, warning Tehran that if it tries to, quote, play the US, negotiators won't be receptive. Before boarding Air Force One, the US Vice President told reporters he was looking forward to the talks.
I think it's going to be positive. We'll, of course, see. As the President of the United States said, if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand.
Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer held talks with top Qatari officials on a visit to the Gulf nation on Friday, discussing what he termed the, quote, fragile ceasefire in the Iran war.
The discussion moved very quickly to the ceasefire, a sense that it's fragile, that more work is needed, that the Strait of Hormuz has to be part of the solution, a very strong sense that there can't be tolling or restrictions on that navigation.
Also on Friday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expelled Spain from participating in a US-led international body monitoring Gaza after it had, quote, chosen repeatedly to stand against Israel. Around 200 American troops are currently working alongside the Israeli military and delegations from other countries to monitor the implementation of the US-sponsored peace deal in Gaza.
French President Emmanuel Macron met for the first time with Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican on Friday for a private audience. Macron and the leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics were due above all to discuss the resolution of the crisis in the Middle East, with a particular focus on Lebanon, where deadly Israeli strikes threatened a 2-week-long ceasefire between the US and Iran. Pope Leo XIV has visited Lebanon last year as part of his first trip abroad and has repeatedly prayed for the victims of the conflict. Both Macron and the Chicago-born pontiff have spoken out against US President Donald Trump over the Iran war and urged for a diplomatic solution to the conflict.
C'est un tableau qui est peint alors qu'il est sur un petit bateau. Il se fait construire un bateau-atelier, il se met sur ce bateau-atelier, il sillonne la Seine et il peint sur son bateau. C'est pour ça qu'on a dans les îlots de Port-Villers un aspect très immersif. On est vraiment au niveau de l'eau. Donc c'est un tableau qui est peint avec une touche très large, très spontanée, ce qui est très caractéristique des débuts de l'impressionnisme. C'est très caractéristique de l'art de Monet qui aimait beaucoup en fait le système des séries. On l'a vu avec les nymphéas, les cathédrales de Rouen, les meules. Il se met exactement au même endroit et il va peindre le même sujet mais sous une atmosphère différente, à un horaire différent. Ici, on a une vue peinte le matin. Donc on a une lumière très spécifique avec des tonalités dans l'eau absolument magnifiques faites de mauve, de rose.